The City of Newport Complete Streets Plan and Community Development Director, Gary Carver.
A lovely introduction, thank you. Thank you all. This presentation is the result of a couple months of work. The Complete Streets Plan is a planning document that we can use for grant acquisition as well as our own development infrastructure-wise. Hey, Carlene, come on. Started this part early here. Some of this stuff that's going to be in it is stuff that's already happening right now. Some of it is maybe 10, 15, 20 years down the road, and that's okay. Having a long-range plan is a good thing. But we'll add it to the planning documents we've got as far as downtown is concerned, because it is downtown adjacent. It's pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of this one. I didn't do a whole lot other than provide information, but these ladies worked on it. This is Liesl and Rachel with KCI Technologies, right? Yeah, out of Nashville, and we've been working long range, and they've been in Newport a couple times so far. So I'm going to turn it over to her. She has very strict instructions on how we like to do things here, about quick and efficient and effective.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Gary. Thanks, Gary, and thanks, Mayor, for having us today. Like Gary mentioned, my name is Liesl. I have team member Rachel with me today. We also have other team members back at the office. We're a transportation planning, traffic engineering firm out of Nashville. Go ahead and get started. Let me see if I can also look as well. So we focus really on the Cosby Highway and West Broadway Street corridors going through downtown Newport. Can I do that?
And
okay.
You move over there.
Yeah. Thank you so much. All right. Actually, that makes sense. Okay. So today I'm just going to kind of quickly breeze through what we've been working on. Like Gary mentioned, we've been working for several months on the community's plan. So today is a very high overview of kind of what we did, what the plan entails, the existing conditions. We did a few of those analyses in terms of like safety, for example. I'll touch on the engagement that we've had, including public engagement as well as stakeholders. I'll quickly go through the recommendations as well as our project next steps to kind of close out this planning effort. Oh, before I get ahead of myself, over here to the right there is a map, and it shows you in the this corridor, these two corridors, I should say, are the ones that we focused on. And this plan was developed through a TDOT Community Transportation Planning Grant. There is also another plan currently being undertaken, which I think they've already wrapped up a month or two ago, but that's the RUPI grant, and there's focus there on strictly downtown. So we're looking more at the corridors. So like I mentioned, this was completed through a TDOT Community Transportation Planning Grant, focusing again on West Broadway at Thinwood Drive East, and then for Cosby Highway, we're looking at Epley Road North into downtown. So the vision that we've developed for this plan and for these corridors is that these highways provide safe and comfortable walking and bicycling connections for residents and visitors alike in support of the community's vision to be an active gateway community to the Smokies, complete with a vibrant downtown. So like Gary mentioned, you all do have a great suite of previous planning documents already on the books, and so we went through those and made sure that our recommendations, as well as kind of the overall, again, the vision, dovetailed nicely in with what you guys already have. So when we say complete streets, that pretty much is just meaning to provide the right street in the right place. So whether that perhaps it's all automobile oriented, but in some other contexts it may be appropriate to provide a shared use path accommodation. This is an example of a state route facility right next to a library with a shared use path. So again, just complete streets is just meaning that it's the right infrastructure for the folks that are using the transportation network. So some of the major outcomes and deliverables from this plan, like Gary mentioned, this plan is an important document to go after different TDOT as well as recreational grants to construct some of the recommended sidewalks and greenways that we have in the plan. So that's really important. The big important outcome is the plan to show TDOT that the community has put forth thought and analysis into some of these plan connections. We're also going to be providing cross-section design guidelines, like you can see there, for different segments of these corridors, and identify the different design measures of these facilities and what those will look like. We also developed a complete streets draft policy, and that's just basically, again, it's kind of signaling that the community's committed to providing safe and comfortable walking and biking facilities. All right, so like I mentioned, we did several existing conditions analyses. Rachel and I were here for a field review, so we drove all over the community, specifically within our study area. We also looked at traffic volumes using TDOT transportation counts. They have a number of count stations all over the transportation network, so we're able to look at historic traffic volumes, but as well as look at future traffic volumes all the way into 2040, just to kind of see what kind of traffic pressure is going to be put onto the network. So we looked at that. We also looked at the safety analyses, which was basically we evaluated crash history, both for vehicles, but as well as specifically pedestrians and bicyclists with vehicles. And then finally, the field review, like I mentioned. And the map here on the right is just an example of one of the analyses that we did. And that is based on the infrastructure that is currently out there. And what this is called is a bicycle and pedestrian level of traffic stress. So when you're along Cosby Highway, it feels somewhat uncomfortable just because of the amount of traffic and the speed of traffic. And so this little level of traffic stress it's a methodology for scoring the roadway network, as well as if there are sidewalks, to kind of see where are those locations that we should hone in on that might be especially uncomfortable or unsafe for walking or bicycling. So that's just an example to show you kind of some of our analyses. Furthermore, we did it for the bicycle from a bicyclist perspective as well. They're a little bit less or they can handle a little bit more traffic stress, if you will, because it is a vehicle technically, and they are allowed to ride in the lane. But again, this is just simply to kind of show you the real big takeaway here is that the major corridors are, in fact, stressful and uncomfortable currently for most people that are walking and bicycling. All right, in terms of our public engagement, like I mentioned, we had a great turnout back in, I guess it was April in the spring. We had both a Survey Monkey as well as a map where you could go online and provide comments on the map. So we had an excellent turnout for that. 135 surveys were completed. So we had a great participation for a community of this size. We also had a virtual open house as well, which consisted of a presentation and open discussion. So we also had some great discussion during that event as well. Really the key takeaway on this one is that the top destinations, that was an important question that we asked folks to kind of rank the destinations in terms of where they would like to walk or bike or currently do. And those are the high school, downtown, the fairgrounds, the old Tanner School, which is now as well as Walters State Community College. Okay, so now I'm going to quickly go through some of these recommendations. Basically what we looked at and what ultimately we are providing are these future bicycle and pedestrian networks, these connections that, like Gary mentioned, is something to work towards over the long term. So the types of facilities that we were looking at are sidewalks, of course, and then shared use paths. We have some examples here when it's within a roadway right-of-way, that's called a side path. So we looked at some of those types of facilities for the corridor. And then greenways, of course, those go more off of highway corridors through, for example, along a stream, for example. And then finally, the shared streets. When I say shared streets, that basically just means that it might warrant additional pavement markings and/or signage, as well as even some perhaps traffic calming measures. These are typically only on low volume streets as they are already. However, you do want to make sure that the vehicles that are traveling on it are going at an appropriate speed. So just know that as we kind of talk through this. Okay, so at a high level, and you all have a handout in front of you showing these draft networks. I will say that TDOT is currently, they're looking at this as you all are as well. We don't anticipate any changes to the recommendations based on our discussions with some of the TDOT planners, but just know that they are taking a look at it currently. And then finally, we've also developed these corridor cross-sections, again, for design guideline purposes. Okay, segment 1. We have 5 segments that I'm going to quickly go through. But this is up by Fenwood Drive. Let's see. Well, there we go. So this is for West Broadway. As you can see, it's the existing, how it is here today, also showing here today. There's currently no walking or biking infrastructure out there today. However, this is what's being proposed for that portion of the highway is basically incorporating a shared use path and as well as a sidewalk on the northern side. Okay, moving on towards downtown, this is segment 2. And I should go ahead and note on this one, the shared street, there's a great alternative on this parallel facility to provide folks a more comfortable walking environment that's outside of the high traffic corridor. So we certainly have an opportunity for a shared streets on that parallel facility. But here it is existing today, currently without infrastructure. And then the proposed, we're proposing that the sidewalk be on the north side of the corridor here. And again, for the connection on the south side, that would basically be that shared street alternative connection. There's some great through access to those businesses that are located along the corridor from that backside. So it's very helpful. Okay, third segment, moving on into downtown further. This is almost at the intersection with Cosby Highway. As you all may know, you are getting some sidewalks, future sidewalks that'll be coming in soon to connect along West Broadway Street to Hedrick. So this is just west of that. Here it is as it is today, without any walking or biking infrastructure. And here's what we envision what it could look like with the addition of sidewalk on both sides of the street in this location. All right, segment 4 focuses on Cosby Highway. This is the northern portion. You can see we've got some shared use paths going to the north, making sure, again, looking at those destinations that folks ranked for us in terms of what are those top destinations. So we're really looking to get folks to the school and the community theater at the high school, as well as the farmers market and the old Tanner School as well. But here we have an additional opportunity to take a potential pathway, and of course, these pathways, when I say that, there is a lot of coordination that goes into it and work with the individual property owners. So I just wanted to note that. But there is a great opportunity here with the new little park that the city has, which is very beautiful with the backdrop of the mountains, I will say. There's an opportunity, since the roadway already has sidewalk, to take that path on the backside and kind of provide a connection to that park. Okay, segment 4, that's what it looks like existing today. There's sidewalk on both sides currently. And then the proposed. So we would be recommending that on the west side, that sidewalk would be widened to a 10-foot width, and that's just basically to accommodate both cyclists as well as pedestrians and bidirectional traffic. Okay. Our final segment is up the southern end of Cosby Highway. This is north of Epley Road. So we envision continuing that shared use path connection across the interstate, the interchange, and then on down through connecting to those hotels, some of the restaurants there. And we tried to bring the connection all the way down to Lowe's. However, where the right-of-way opens up right there, there's kind of a lot of topography and grading and stormwater infrastructure that would be needed. And given that the Walmart, they have a great little cross-property access there. So if you could just at least get folks safely to that Walmart parcel, then folks can certainly walk over to the other destinations. I believe there's a doctor's office as well as the Lowe's over there. Okay, and that's what it looks like today. You can kind of see where it gets a little tough with the topography there. So we're proposing that the pathway would turn off right there at the signalized intersection at Wendy's. Okay, and this is what the proposed cross-section would look like. Again, this is just showing that shared use path on the west side of the highway. And we certainly looked at a lot of other connections off the corridor as well. Specifically, again, to downtown. Downtown was one of the top destinations that folks wanted to be able to walk and bike to. And we really tried to get creative in terms of building on the recommendations you have, but also kind of the built environment. I know there's a lot of we love these buildings. They're just beautiful old buildings. So wanted to show you kind of an idea of what it could look like. Behind us in this image is downtown. So your Riverwalk eventually would extend along Main Street. And this is looking to the west. And just kind of gives you an idea of what it could be with a sidewalk as well as the shared use path. So again, there's a lot of other exciting connections I would love to share with you, but for the sake of time, we wanted to at least show you one kind of a vision of what it could look like, extending along your Main Street and extending that Riverwalk. Okay, some of our project next steps, is to score the projects using a prioritization strategy rooted in data. It doesn't set the project schedule in stone, but it's simply more of kind of gives you an idea of what are those priority connections based on the goals that we've outlined for this study. So whether it's connectivity to the schools, for example, if the project is within a quarter mile of the school, it would receive points. So that's basically how we're going to go through and score the projects to give you guys an idea on which ones would be most beneficial to move forward on in the near term. We're going to be submitting this draft plan to Gary, and you all will have the opportunity to review it and comment on the document and/or any of the recommendations today that we've discussed. And then we'll revise that document and submit it to you all as well as to TDOT moving forward. So that's all I had today. Welcome any questions if there are any. I will say that we are also, neglected to say, we are costing the projects as well to give you all an idea on how much each of the projects will cost as well. But yeah, we've really enjoyed getting to know your community, and thank you for having us this evening.
Tim, what's the situation or status of the Riverwalk here? I hadn't heard anything in a while. What is that?
I have no information on it.
Right now, we met about a month and a half, maybe 2 months back with our engineer, and right now he's going through to check and see if we're good with permits. We may have to do another environmental. We don't know for sure yet, so we're waiting to hear back from him. Everything's in his hands right now, and he's supposed to let us know what our next step needs to be with it.
I've been wondering about it and see what happened with it.
Well, thank you for the amount of work you put into this.
Thank you. We've really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Lisa.
Here.
Any other questions, comments at this time? If not, the meetings have been called to order. We'll now have our invocation led by Chief